Hello and welcome to DDOCast episode 353, recorded live on Sunday, September 28th. I am your host, Patrick. With me this week, we have returning with us Voodu Spyce.
Hey everyone.
We also have joining us, sort of for the first time, Even Note.
Hello again.
Let's see, we have, Even Note was on our Player Council interview. This is the first time explicitly on the cast itself. We're happy to have her. This week's screenshot, just from finds a truly restful shrine in the 190th screenshot of the week. I'm going to guess that's in Wayloon somewhere. Kind of has that vibe. Oh, the breakables on the side of the bed are pretty indicative.
Definitely Wayloon.
Yeah, I think that's going to be an Army of Shadow, but I'm not positive. I don't recognize the shrine per se. I think it might be where the named guy is. One of the named guys is. But there you go. We like to talk about Dungeons & Dragons online nearly every weekend. You can watch us through Google Plus Hangouts, YouTube, or from our website at DDOCast.com. DDOCast is hosted by Cyber Ears, the awesome podcast hosting network. Shows are usually available within a few days of recording, and the next show will probably be Saturday, October 4th. You can stay updated by following us on social media pages, our website, DDOCast.com, and with our calendar there. On the podcast this week, we're going to talk about game news, and we're going to have a discussion about new player integration, which should be kind of fun. Let's see. If you're looking for an introduction to Even Note, go listen to the Players Council interview because we introduced her there. Normally I introduce new guests, but we kind of did that already, even though you weren't on the show. Sort of. Maybe, I don't know. Anyways, we'll do game news. What little game news there is. There will be downtime on Monday, September 29th at 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the morning in Eastern Time. That will be for Update 23. Update 23 is here. Woohoo! You guys looking forward to that?
Yay!
Oh, I'm so looking forward to it for the Pally changes because my main is at heart a Pally. She's on a monk life now. On the other hand, there's still more stuff I want to do before I TR her, so I'm going to be busy tonight.
You can do some of it after the update hits, too. Yeah, my Paladin's looking forward to it. My Paladin's a sword and board guy, too, so between Paladin changes and Vanguard, he should be pretty happy. Let's see, known issues. So there was some questions about the known issues list, and I'm pretty sure this has been on the show before, but I'll reiterate it because it came up this week, and it's a good thing for newer folks to be aware of. The known issues list is not a full list of all bugs in DDO. It's also not how they track bugs internally. An item being removed from the known issues list, which is what happened to spur this on, does not mean they've forgotten about it. An item remaining on the list for a long period of time does not mean we're ignoring it. The public known issues list has never been used as an internal database, and they've said that repeatedly. The primary function is to alert the community to issues that they no longer need bug reports on, to let people know about features that are working as intended. The list will never contain a complete accounting of all bugs, issues, and such, and should never be construed as providing that information, which is why they have a paragraph about the known issues list to say what it is. So this is kind of what's going on. Basically, it's they pulled, I don't remember what the issue was, but they pulled one of the issues off of the list, and it's not actually fixed, and people were confused. Does that make pretty good sense to you guys?
Yep.
Yeah, I think people look at that list sometimes and think, oh, this is everything wrong with DDO, and then they panic if they find something that's not on there. What did they pull up, do you know?
I don't remember, to be honest. Yeah, I don't remember. It wasn't something major. I think it was something that had been on there for a while. Yeah, basically, what's up there is that means we know about it, and we're not looking for more information to try and address it, or it's working as intended. I think they've got the Divine Grace thing for Paladins on there right now, which is technically not a bug, and it has been working as intended for a long time, but they're going to change how it works. So they put it on the known issues list to kind of let people know it's no longer working as intended, as an example. There's some other stuff that's been on there for years and years. I think the ladder bug has been on there for heaven knows how long, just to say that, hey, ladders are broken. So it's it's not, and they've said multiple times, they're not going to publish a full list of bugs to players. There was one point where Major Mal listed basically a snapshot of what their bug reporting tool or the internal bug list looked like. And it was what had been submitted on the Mania that week, and it was basically just the titles of what people had posted in. It was a fairly lengthy list, although it was only somewhat informative because it was just the titles. But they have lots of reasons why they're not going to post everything. Number one, exploits. They're not going to put exploits on a known issues list. That would kind of defeat the purpose. They don't want people to know about and use that stuff. So, anyways, that's pretty much the sum total of the game news this week. There's a fair bit of community news, which we'll get to in a second as well. Bonus days this week, 20% Heroic XP and plus 5% VIP. So if you are a VIP and you are running Heroic, yeehaw, it's plus 20, an extra 25% for you, which is no small chunk of change.
Good time to TR.
Yeah. Okay. Sales this week, 25% off of Guild Renown Elixirs, 1 to 5 stat tomes, veteran status, and 32-point builds, and you can get a 10 stack of major 12-point potions with the code MSPP24, one per account. Let's see, Clique Chronicle for the week, the 111th Chronicle. And this is where I'm probably in the future going to be trying to shorten the shows down a little bit, kind of not necessarily reading the entire Chronicle and other community news. So fair warning, I'm going to try and shorten the show lengths down to an hour to an hour and a half. We'll see how successful I am with that. But so do not expect to have every iota of news in here, particularly when it comes to community news and release notes. But we'll see how successful it works. So I might kind of skim through some of these things. And there's some other sites that are up that you can kind of follow along and catch a lot of the stuff if you want to catch everything as well. Let's see. The Chronicle, the 111th Chronicle, DDO guys are a group of players who've been posting up YouTube videos, walkthroughs, and more. You can check those guys out. Let's see. Speaking of videos, Voodu Spyce soloed a stay at the inn on Epic Elite. I'm assuming on your Druid build.
Yep. That's pretty much all I play anymore.
That's fair. There's also Sith DDO had a cinematic trailer for his Pyrene Paladin, kind of a fun little video. The comment for the week: Endress Vol is part dragon, part elf, and all lich. She may be known for having the mark of death, but what else is she known for? I'm gonna say her skull collection of platers. She is slain.
She's also known for liking to sign her name with just using her first initial and last name, so it reads Evil. Get it?
I like it. Nice. Even though, do you have an answer to the Chronicle comment?
No, I'm just wondering though if she dots the evil with little, if she dots the I in evil with a little heart.
Why don't you go ask her? Let us know
No,
how it
I
works
think
out
I'll
for you.
save that for somebody else.
Let's see. DDO Gamer had a post about hitting jackpot on a gold roll, which is always kind of fun to see. Even now prepares for update 23. That's your blog, right? Even though.
Yep, that one is me.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. We had a highlight for our walkthrough Haunted Halls last week. There was, let's see, in the video world, update 23 Mark of Death preview was on for the Wednesday live stream, and I pulled a couple things out of that that I will share with everybody because I'm a nice guy. Just kind of the highlights that this is new information. The Mirror of Glam Rings will be compatible with newer style cosmetic armors, but not the older potion style cosmetics. At least that's the intent. And they're going to cost somewhere around 245 turbine points. It's subject to change, but that was what they were expecting to price them at. The Harper Tree should be priced at 495 turbine points, also free to VIPs. The physical resistance rating augments, the blue ones, will not provide MMR at first. They want to evaluate adding MMR to the game and then leave that option open for later. And see, the Epic Orchard, the new raid is a continuation of the previous storyline. So the whole thing is kind of a continuation of the previous storyline. The landscape and dungeons will be level 29. The raid is a completely new version and is level 30, although it sounds like we will see some very familiar things in that raid. There was thought of adding an intercession prevention yellow augment, which may still happen in the future, which would be kind of fun. I think the only place you can get intercession ward is on the sword out of Orchard.
Right now, but there is a new item coming out that has it. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember which one it is, but it's from the raid.
Okay. There are quells in the raid, so that's kind of a... Although, there's quells and beholders, so divines are kind of doubly hosed on that one. Let's see, they did also mention, which is not necessarily new news, but they kind of mentioned it, I'll mention again, that the water that's in the raid, it's not an instant kill you thing anymore. It does damage, and it sounds like the intent is that the longer you're in it, the more damage you take, kind of thing. So if you fall in the water a little bit, you should be fine. But if you're trying to swim through the water, you're going to get toasted. So swim at your own risk. They also made the Heroic Orchard a little easier. They added some shrines and stuff like that. I think that was just the Explorer area, but I'm not positive on that. Update 23. Oh, we already knew that. Let's see. The new festival will not specifically be Halloween themed. They want to be able to run it at other times without being weird. That's kind of the problem with doing seasonal festivals. Let's see. There are plans to look into expanding items for various styles that have been given much more support, i.e., bucklers and light shields, that kind of thing. They're aware that there are some set of items that are not the greatest of support, specifically named items. I mean, random items are, you can pretty much find anything you need. Which, I mean, that's what I did with my druid, or not my druid, my bard. Needed a buckler for level 20. I just went and got a random buckler. The benefits of having just a random buckler was better than not having a buckler at all. So, always keep that in mind. And then they mentioned some stuff that they are looking at for Update 24, which included range power, the brand new quests, the new event, which is not technically a part of Update 24, since it's going to be something that you can have other times as well, but they're kind of that's where they're putting the work, and I guess they're looking at barbarians as well. Let's see, did you guys watch that video, and you guys have anything you want to add?
I've not seen the whole video yet, so I'm going to withhold comment till I get a chance to watch that.
That's fair.
I just caught the end of the questions, so I unfortunately missed the part where they were doing the raid. As far as adding new shrines, though, you mentioned earlier to Old Orchard, they'll be putting new shrines in the quest Inferno of the Damned.
Well, that's no fun.
I think they're putting one right at the start. I can't remember, but the two that are there now are, can be tricky to get to, and if you miss it, you're screwed.
Penalties. I don't know. Yeah, that's fair. If you're gonna add one, that's a fair statement. You have to kill a certain dude, and you have to be next to him when you kill him, so he ports you to the other side. On that note, too, there is a DDOCast that's an Inferno of the Damned walkthrough. I think that's somewhere around episode 320, somewhere in that vicinity. But you can watch how to do that on there as well. The Summer Fling is now the Fall Fling. They were in Grey Moon in CO6. Let's see, the blogging world. Your DDO is shutting down. He's not found a solid individual to assume responsibility for the project, and he's planning on bringing your DDO in its current state offline October 2nd in a couple of days. So, unfortunately, that's going to happen, but it happens. People move on. And sometimes you can't find anyone to pass the torch. The DDO Gamer talked about adjustments for success in Epic Elite content in his Hits the Wall blog. It was kind of entertaining. And there is a new player in town, the DDO Players Alliance, which is an extension of the Lotro Players Alliance. They are excited to officially launch DDO Players, our second Players Alliance site. The goal is to it's pretty much the same as Lotro, a community building site designed to help grow gaming communities and promote great content. We'll link to this post and probably also the website, which is ddoplayers.com. See, Draculetta will be the lead director of DDO Players. Pineleaf and Mystery are going to be joining him with some of the other authors. Let's see. There's already actually a series about impressions of the game from a new player's point of view. They are also doing a DDO podcast. DDO Players News will be hosted by Pineleaf, and Draculetta will be a co-host. The first episode will be on Monday, tomorrow, September 29th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and should be live each Monday following. You can join the chat via ddoplayers.com/live. Let's see. If you're interested, you can contact them at contact@ddoplayers.com. And yeah, so new player in town. Pretty exciting to have more folks in the community, particularly plugging stuff in. And MD Interactive is doing a giveaway, which we'll link. They're a YouTube channel related to DDO, and they are giving away, I don't remember what it is, but you go to the forums and we'll link all that stuff in the show notes. You can go check out what's doing that. They're going to roll sometime in October. So goodies, free stuff, yay. And I think with that, we'll move into our roundtable discussion. And what we're going to talk about is kind of new player integration, how to get new players, or how new players kind of get integrated into the game, not just starting to play, but kind of really start to get into a community, guild, play style, kind of get into the game. To the extent that some of the older players, veterans, would be playing a lot. Not just someone dabbling in the game, but like really committing to playing the game kind of thing. That's what we're going for. And part of the reason for this is Even Note started Players Helping Players. Anna, do you want to start off by talking about what that is?
Well, that's basically, I mean, if you're in the harbor or market and you see this stuff in general chat or the advice channel, new people who are asking for help, and it seems like 90% of the time, if they get any response at all, they get people telling them, oh, forget it, delete, re-roll, go play WoW type of stuff. And, you know, and then people wonder why the player base is dwindling. And so this is just kind of a place, you know, where hopefully people can come. There's going to be some, you know, just basic guides to getting started in DDO, how to use the map, how to find the NPCs. And I'm working also, it's in the beta stages right now. Patrick, I can't remember if I gave you access to that, the beta forum that I've got set up.
I think so. I don't know that I've actually.
And there's really not a lot on it now because my computer's been going through some serious issues, which as of Friday night are now solved. But so I kind of put it on the shelf for about a week or so. But hoping to have like some walkthroughs, build guides, and the intent behind it isn't to tell people this is what you do. It's to say, you decide what you want to do, and we'll help you figure out what you need to know. Like, we're not going to tell them, if somebody says, where do I find the ruby in, wow, brain fart, smugglers, that's quest with all the smugglers' rubies and stuff like that. Say, we're going to not tell them where to find it, but how to find the info on where to find it, type of thing. So helping people help themselves more than just handing them answers.
So an answer to that question, which, by the way, I believe is Smuggler's Warehouse, would be something along the lines of, this is an early quest which is designed to teach you different aspects about DDO, particularly about how breakables work. Hint, hint. So we'll just start off the kind of more official discussion of what are some barriers that new players have to overcome when they start playing the game. Don't know, jump in at once.
Just speaking from my own standpoint, I mean, learning where things were. And yeah, I am navigationally challenged. Anybody who's run with me on any kind of regular basis will tell you that. My guildie likes to tell people that I get lost in market barracks. So, even now, sometimes finding my way around isn't always easy. But especially when you're new, when I was new, I had never played an MMO before. I had no idea what anything on the map was about. I didn't know what these little chalices, I just went around talking to NPCs, having no idea what the little symbols over their heads meant. So just, go around, talk to all the NPCs, because eventually if you do that, you're going to figure out what they all do. And it would be nice to have some way to get new people more aware of things like the DDO forums and the wiki, because I didn't know either of those things existed for a long time. And now that I know there is such a thing as wiki maps, it amazes me that I got as far as I did without giving up.
Yeah, that's fair. Voodoo, anything that kind of jumps out to you?
Well, there's definitely a learning curve. I haven't played other MMOs, but I understand that the mechanics of DDO are kind of different than others, so there's a learning curve there, and learning just basic things that we take for granted, like knowing that multiple items with the same enhancement don't stack, but how many new players are out there running around with 4 different strength items thinking that that's somehow helping them.
That's fair. There's a lot of mechanics, for sure, and rule sets that, if you have a pen and paper background, they'll make a lot more sense. But there's plenty of people that don't. They're just coming in from an MMO standpoint. I would say the thing that jumps out to me the most is character creation, because really before you even get to experience anything else about the game, you have to build a character. And they have paths which are good, but otherwise, I mean, you have to build a character before you can do anything. So you have to learn how to create a new character, what the stats really mean and do for you, and how to. I mean, let's face it, one of the best things about DDO is its customization of characters, but at the same time, that's kind of a hindrance for a new player because there's so many options, which is probably why they built the paths. But
yeah, and if you don't have any kind of a D&D background at all, and you haven't played other MMOs, and you're looking at these classes, and you're probably sitting there thinking, what's the difference?
they do have pretty good descriptions in the character builder section, which is nice. But again, it only goes far, and some of it's not necessarily the best advice anyways. There are a few things in there that it's better than it used to be. I think there were a couple things very early on in the game that were it was terrible advice kind of stuff, which they mostly got rid of. There was a whole community feedback thing about those character creation notes and hints and stuff. So the other thing that I would say too is kind of two other things that come to mind. We're talking about what are barriers that new players have to overcome. One is learning quests, because really the game is about doing quests, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Learning new quests is supposed to be fun and exciting and interesting. But it's still something that you have to kind of overcome, like how quests work. And I think the new quests, the low-level quests are fairly well designed to kind of help you navigate. This is how you do questing in DDO. We talked about Smuggler's Warehouse, for example, that kind of highlights how to, breakables are an important part of the game. Although I think that may be one of the few places that breaking stuff is actually where you're going to find an item that you need. That doesn't happen very often later in the game. But there's other things like the floor tile puzzles, like the Korthos quests in particular, are kind of designed to teach you how to do different mechanics in the game. They introduce the puzzles early on, that kind of stuff. And the other thing is building community, because really when you think about DDO, and really Dungeons & Dragons in general, it's a community game. It's meant to be played with other people. It's not really meant to be a solo experience. Not that you can't play DDO solo, but at its very roots, Dungeons & Dragons is not a solo game. It's a community game. It's something you do with friends. So I think building a community is an important aspect with that new players have to overcome. They have to find a place where they can fit in and become part of a clique, essentially, which means you have to get integrated into a new circle of people that already have a background and a connection and experience together. You don't want to add
Yeah,
anything?
yeah, it takes a lot of people too. I know it was a while. I actually joined with a friend who's no longer playing the game, and I had no idea there was, an LFM panel or what it meant or what it would, mean for me if I wanted to run something when I was on by myself and didn't want to solo. And that's something I've heard from a lot of people is just not understanding the LFM panel, and even veterans don't read the LFMs. You put whatever you put in the comments, and it's just something maybe they should add to the tooltip. How to press O and bring up the LFM panel and look at what you're eligible for and what you might want to run.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I don't even know what's on the tooltips anymore. It's been ages since I turn them off right away, and have for a number of years. I'm trying. I want to say there is something in the splash screen tooltips, like the loading screens, about the
Yeah, that's
LFM
what I was
panel.
talking about. I don't have the other. I completely forgot there were other tooltips, to be honest. I'm just talking about the splash screens. Yeah, I think they finally deleted the one that said nothing but the, so most of them actually have valid information now.
Yeah, there's been some constant amusement from those splash screens. Some of them were bad advice. They did a pass on those a ways back as well, which is kind of amusing. All right, so what can new players do to help themselves get into DDO?
One of the biggest things that new players can do is to, when you're grouping with other people, let them know that you're new. And a lot of people are going to be hesitant to say anything. They just want to sit there and say nothing, and they're afraid to tell people they're new. But you're going to be really surprised at how helpful a lot of people will be if you just tell them that you're new and you're still learning. Some people are going to be douchey to you, and you're going to know that those are the people that you're not going to want to run with. And but a lot of people will be really, really helpful. In fact, I was just cold called by somebody who just started playing the game 2 weeks ago. He saw my build and he had a question about it, and I actually started running with him a little bit, helped him out, farming some challenges, and we're starting to become friends, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that is cool. Yeah, that's what I would say. Just talk to people. If you don't know something, don't be afraid to say so. And don't come off saying, yo, give me 500 plat, I need a weapon and I'm new. Just say, what is the best weapon I can use? I'm a level 2 fighter or something like that. And if you're polite about it, you're going to find that people are going to be so much more likely to help you, and you can actually get more stuff free just by being nice and asking what you should be using than by coming right out and asking for free stuff.
Big time. That's great advice.
But yeah, just be polite. If somebody's being a D-bag, just, if you don't know how to squelch, just, learn to ignore them. And just anything you don't know, ask questions. If you're in a group and you don't know something, speak up, let them know. And it's probably a good idea to avoid any LFM that says Xur TR friendly, because they're probably not going to want to stop and help a new person.
Yeah, I would say two things that always come to mind for me is one, like Voodu said, let people know that you're new, and don't get offended by someone who says this is not going to be a very good group for a new person, or something to that effect. If they're kind of a butthead about it, then yeah, that's one thing. But there's, I think I said on the show, sometimes I'm just not in a mood to really carry a new person through a quest. Right? I had a hard day at work. I just want to go blow something up. I play with different moods in depending on what's going on in the real world, and how I'm feeling. So I would say don't automatically get really ticked off at someone who's not really able or willing to take time to help you as a new player right then, if they're doing it politely. I would also say, along with asking questions, start with, hey, do you mind if I ask you some questions? Or hey,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
new.
absolutely. Asking first, yeah, is always, may I ask you some questions? And that way, if somebody's in the middle of a quest, they can, politely say, not right now. Can you give me 15 minutes? It's not like running up to a total stranger on the street and saying, hey, what do I do about this?
And kind of along with it, it can be something along the lines of, hey, I'm new to the game, or I haven't run this quest before. While we're going, do you mind if I ask you some questions? Or, hey, I'm kind of new to this raid. Tell me what to do, and then afterwards, do you mind if I ask you questions for 10 minutes to kind of understand more about what's going on? And that's totally fine, and that's because then you get some of the context too, and you make sure that both players are at a place where they can do a lot of question answering, which is probably when I've had the most kind of positive interaction with new players and been really helpful is been in that kind of a scenario where they're asking questions after the fact or during a quest, and I know ahead of time that they're kind of interested in learning that information. Because just asking someone questions like that too, it does a couple of things. One is it builds a reputation with that person right away because it's, hey, you seem to know what you're doing. I want to learn from you. That's what you're saying, and people usually respond really positively to that too. Like, oh, they want to learn from me. That it makes me feel good. Makes me feel a little knowledgeable, even if I may not know everything about the quest or something like that. Just starting from that point of, hey, can I ask you questions, gives you that aspect of I'm respecting your knowledge and what you can teach me, and I want to learn from you. That's what that says to people, and that generally gives a really positive impression on them.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are so afraid of, somebody dissing them for being new or not knowing that they're afraid to speak up. And yeah, I've even seen cases where, somebody tried to act like they knew when it turned out they didn't, after the fact saying, by the way, this was my first Todd after all. And so I really didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be in Timmy in the Shadows, stuff like that. And yeah, don't try to fake it because people are going to figure it out. I don't know if you watched The Big Bang Theory. If you ever saw the one where Leonard goes over to Penny's apartment to watch football and has Sheldon teach him football ahead of time, and he's going, everybody else is like, oh, that's a bad call. And Leonard's like, yes, that football was clearly traveling in a forward motion and stuff like this. Yeah, so that's kind of what it comes off like. So just, don't, if you're really too intimidated to ask questions, at least don't try to pretend that you know when you don't. And most of the time, just open up, ask the questions. Most people, if you're polite about it, are going to be nothing but helpful.
I don't really watch the show, but I'm kind of Sheldon teaching football seems a little strange.
Yeah, well, it turns out growing up in East Texas, his dad taught him. It's a long story.
If you are too shy to say in party chat that you're new, but if you can muster up the courage, send a tell to the leader. If you're in a raid and you don't know what's going on, just send them a private tell saying, this is my first time.
Yeah,
Yeah, or even if you get into the raid and the leader's, being kind of debaggy or just doesn't seem very helpful, anybody in the group, if you're watching them and listening to them and they seem to know what they're doing and be, approachable, send them a tell.
which can sometimes be a little more effective. I know even as a leader, I've told new people in a raid, hey, follow this guy, do what they're doing. Because I know that person knows what they're doing, and then I don't have to worry about as much about holding a new person's hand while I'm trying to coordinate everything, which can be really helpful. I'll say along with letting people know you knew. Look, you might run into some problems by saying, "Hey, I'm a new person." I guarantee you will run into more problems if you don't say anything and it comes out in a bad way.
Yeah, exactly.
That's when people get blacklisted because you didn't know what you're doing, you didn't say anything, and you messed up, right? I pretty much I can go through every single raid in the game, with the possible exception of Demon Queen because it was pretty straightforward. Where I've had someone in the group not say anything at some point in time, uh, even though they were new, and even though I asked, does anyone not understand what they're doing? And they tried to do it anyways, and they didn't say anything. and I had problems because of that. Even like I literally maybe it was like 2 weeks ago. I ran Temple of Deathworm, and I gave instructions. Said, okay, these people stay on the light side. Everyone else is going to shadow side. And one of those people never went to the shadow side. And I asked him afterwards, hey, how come you never on shadow side? You were supposed to go there. And he said, I didn't know what that meant. Like, okay, so that part where I said, does anyone not understand what they're doing? That was the time where you needed to speak up. And that I even gave you an opportunity and you didn't take it. And you have to take that, because from my standpoint right now, that player, or my standpoint at that point in time, that player was not following instructions. It was questionable whether or not they were someone that I would want to take into a raid, particularly where, there's certain raids. Temple of Deathworm, less now, but Fall of Truth, back in the day, when it first came out, you're trying to do high degrees of coordination and task assignment. Fall of Truth is all about coordinating what you're killing and what you're fighting. Temple of Deathworm is all about assigning people to different tasks and splitting the party up. And that's the entire function of the main boss fight and what makes it challenging. So when one person's not doing that, it makes it harder for everybody else.
And if you're looking to group with these people down the road, remember, if you go into a raid or a quest and you don't tell them that you don't know what you're doing and you screw up, they're going to be talking about you after the raid, and it's not going to be very nice. If you go into a raid or a quest and you say, I don't know what I'm doing, tell me what to do, if you still screw up, they're going to say, yeah, you did okay, you were new, that was your first time, you'll get better. And you're going to get invited back to their raids or groups or whatever.
Might still have problems, but if we think about it this way, you basically have three options. One is you say nothing, and you do okay. You probably don't get noticed. I mean, that may not be a bad thing necessarily, but you probably don't stand out. The other one is you say you're new, and you follow instructions, and you show that you can listen even as a new person. You get noticed, right? You were new, but you said you were new. You counted yourself decently well. You followed the instructions. I mean, those are people that I'm looking for, in general. Or you are new and you don't know what's going on, and you derail the raid single-handedly. Everyone in the raid is going to recognize that and know it. And
in some raids, one person really can wipe. Hound is the one that immediately comes to my mind, but anything that requires a lot of coordination, when one person can wipe a raid, you don't want to be the one person who wipes it.
And trust me, you can try and pass it off on someone else, but particularly the experienced players know why a raid fails. Particularly people that lead the raids a lot.
That's a really good point about showing that you're able to listen and follow instructions. When I was leading those teaching raids earlier in the spring, and I'm going to bring those back soon, there were two friends that had never raided before, and they were joining our raids every week. They were really good at listening, really good at following instructions, both nice guys. We brought them into High Lords Guild. Even though they were kind of noobs, they were really nice and willing to listen, and they enjoyed running with us, so they were a really good fit.
All the skill in the world in this game will not replace an attitude of listening and learning.
The only guy I have ever turned down for a raid, ever, I have never declined anyone unless, I had just one spot left in a specific role to fill. Tried to join my noob-friendly Shroud learning run. I had run with him before, and he's a real elitist. And not in the good sense at all. And I sent him a tell and said, I'm sorry, but I don't think a learning run is really your style. And he sent me back something like, Trollo, I can solo it with my hands tied behind my back or something like that. Said, yeah, this is really not your style.
I think you missed the point of what the raid was going to be about. Yeah. So, moving on in the discussion, how can older players help new players get into the game? I mean, obviously, besides answering the questions, which we're going to talk about already anyways, but what are other ways that older players can help new players get into the game?
Post LFMs instead of just running in your little cliques or within your guild, and that's something I've been trying to make a better effort to do, is actually post LFMs and let anybody in, and that helps to you get to meet new people, and you're definitely going to meet people that you're going to become friends with and going to want to run with. I mean, pretty much everybody in this game, if we think about it, for those of us who've been playing a long time, almost everybody we know in this game we met from pugs.
Yeah, that's pretty much just about everybody I know in the game either was a pug or a few from the old My DDO.
Even if you think about it, the people that you meet because they know other people that you met those people by pugs, right? Like it's all a network, and networking is a big part of the game. I would say, kind of the reciprocal of asking questions is, as in particularly a veteran player, don't be afraid to send someone a tell and say, hey, do you mind if I give you some advice? I've done that in raids to really positive effect a couple of times where people have had struggled or had problems with something in the raid and said, hey, would you like some advice regarding that? As opposed to just like spouting out advice, which may or may not be accurate anyways. Just again, starting off with that first initial question, would you like some advice? Again, it goes back to what I was talking about earlier. You're building up an immediate relationship, and hey, can I help you? What you're saying is, I'm willing to help make you a better player. Would you like some help? And that tends to be a very positive way of going about things. And
Yeah, that's a great approach.
And I don't think I've ever had a time where I've said that and they've said, no, I don't want your help, right? Or I don't want that. And I've done that with older players too. I've done that in Fall of Truth a number of times with people that have been, or the people I play with regularly in my guild. And I said, hey, try this. You might find this to be a better tactic, and they've found it to be really helpful. And there was actually probably a couple months ago, after a Fall of Truth, someone commented on how someone was kiting the spectral dragons, and found that was a really, really good way of doing it, and was asking what they were kind of asking some questions about that. And that person actually said, "Oh yeah, I learned it from this guy." It was me. And it was kind of funny, kind of cool to see how someone was asking questions about a piece of advice I gave someone else, and how they were interacting and sharing that information, making each other better players. So that can really, sharing what you know only makes the entire player base stronger, because they'll share it with other people as well. Now, having said that, be careful you're not sharing false information. Just be aware of that. Not everything that someone's going to say is necessarily accurate. Particularly when you get into finer points of raid details and stuff like that. But there are other ways that older players can help new players get into the game?
Well, when you're leading a raid, and you definitely touched on this, but when you're coordinating and figuring out which jobs to give to which people, ask, is there anybody new? Is there anybody that doesn't know exactly what they're doing? And that's, like you're saying, that's just going to ultimately make them a better player and enhance the community.
I would say, too, don't be afraid to put the new people in key roles. Back them up. Put someone, maybe you've got someone who's really good at a certain task, and someone who's new and interested in learning the raid, give them that task and then have the experienced person back them up, right?
I was doing a Todd run one time. It wasn't supposed to be a learning run, but we had this, this is back in the days when everybody could heal themselves in Shadow Tank, pre-Epic Destinies. And this wizard joins the party, and she said, I've never run Todd before. And we get to be almost full, and so, we're just waiting on a shadow tanker. And she's like, well, I said, she asked something about how shadows were tanked, and I was telling her, well, a lot of times it's done by a Pale Master. She says, well, I'm a Pale Master, can I do it? And I said, well, this isn't really something you want to be a first timer. I said you would need a green steel cold stick. And she's like, oh, I'll go look on the AH. And, we had to kind of explain to her that, no, you can't really buy that. You've got to craft it. But we ended up getting this guy on his Pale Master, joined the group, said he would tank the shadows. And she'd been asking some questions. And, I sent him a tell and told him. And he had her stand down there with him and tank along with him with the auras going. And she did die a couple of times, but that was the greatest thing, that he actually took her down there and not just explained things, but showed it to her. And I now, this was like a year and a half ago, and, I see her, she leads Todd's now, and, if that had been me, that would have been such a great experience. I would have been like, yeah, get me into more Tods as soon as possible. I want to do this.
That's really awesome of that player.
I couldn't help but think a little selfish of him to grab a second aura to help keep him alive.
Oh, this guy was
Ulterior
awesome.
motives.
He probably could have done Nefarios and the Shadows all in one. His hit points barely moved at all. He was great.
Yeah, that's, and that, teaching stuff like that really builds that positive experience, and giving people an opportunity to tank something or to fulfill a key role. Temple of Death Room these days, if I get a new person, their first run, they're going to Shadow Side, and they're the first ones through that portal to go destroy a phylactery, to give them the opportunity to learn how that mechanic works as much as possible that I can shoot them. Now, I generally send them in with someone else, particularly depending on their build. I'll pair them up with someone so that there's two people in there that can kind of figure out how to do it and kind of learn, and just to give them a better chance of success. Like I said, that's another thing too. When you're giving new people tasks and even just being part of the general raid, your job as a leader is to give them as many tools as you can for them to be successful. The role of the leader is to increase the chances of success. That's what you're doing, functionally, right? If you really boil it down. So whether that's as a team as a whole or individuals in the raid fulfilling specific needed tasks, your job is to make everyone more successful. So don't just like, oh yeah, you're new, great, go take the Stormweaver, and leave it at that, right? Give them some tips, give them some pointers.
Yeah, too many people do that. They'll just say, they'll just start ordering people around and yelling at people and thinking that makes them an effective leader. When somebody yells at me and orders me around, even if I end up my natural instinct is, who are you to tell me off like that? You don't know what I can do. And so I don't think that's conducive to learning much at all. And one of the things, just to kind of get back to new players in raids, when I lead a raid, almost every time I pretty much open it up. It's always open to everybody, but a lot of times it's a learning run. If I've got learning run in the LFM and I ask if anybody's new and nobody says anything, this was something another player told me once. Assume that there is somebody in there that's new. Just say to the group, I've got a new person in here. They don't want to be identified, but they sent me a tale, so I'm going to be explaining everything as I go along. And just kind of assume you've got a new person in there, because if it says learning run, you probably do, even if they won't admit it. And that actually, after the raid, I can't tell you how many times somebody sent me a tell and says, yeah, I didn't want to tell you, but that actually was my first time. So you only lose a couple of seconds, which is not a big deal to me. I'm a flower sniffer at heart. And then everybody, knows what to expect, what they're going to do.
Yeah, you could even say along with those lines, some people were giving me a little bit of flack because I was running Fallout Truth on hard, and I was pretty much doing everything I would normally do on Elite with my task assignments and everything, and someone pointed out like, yeah, it's hard, and you're doing all this assigning. Like, look, I kind of refuse to, just because it's easier and we're just gonna smash it anyways, to not still take appropriate tactics so that people learn how to do it on harder difficulties, right? Just because you're running something on normal doesn't mean you want to just abandon all the appropriate tactics and server methods and whatever. You use those runs to train people how to do other stuff, which I think another thing too. If you're an older player and you're trying to teach people how to do stuff, don't run it on the hardest difficulty. You don't need to run it on hard difficulty to do a training run. You can run it easy, even though it won't be very difficult, just to get people through the motions and to know what they're doing, what's expected of them.
And
another thing.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, another thing that as experienced players, if we're leading raids, for example, and we're explaining something, make sure that we're explaining to them knowing that this is their first time, and so there are a lot of assumptions that they don't know. If you tell if you tell them to do this job, make sure that they know where it is, where to go, where to look for whatever. One of one of the horror stories that I will never forget from my first 6 months of playing this game was doing a Hound of Zoriat. I was not leading it, but the leader told this bard, it was his first time ever in there, and the bard has a key role in there to charm the dogs. And he told this bard, who had never been in Hound of Zoriat before, you're going to pick up the stones and charm the dogs. And that's all he told the bard. Not, here's where to find the stones, not you have to hotbar them, it's the little dogs in the center of the map that you're going to charm, blah, blah, blah. There was none of that. It was just pick up the stones and charm the dogs. So needless to say that raid wiped because the bard, who was in the most important role, had no clue what to do, and the leader did a horrible job of explaining how to accomplish that task.
And that's an example of two people failing, right? It's not just on the leader there because the bard didn't say, what? This makes no sense.
Absolutely.
But also it's on the leader, too, to make sure that the bard knows what he's doing. So, you were going to say, even though?
Yeah, what was I going to say? Honestly, it has slipped my mind. If I think of it, I'll chime back in.
All right. Let's move on. Just going to finish up the discussion. How can Turbine help new players get into the game?
If I may, Patrick, I had two more quick things that I wanted to mention.
Please do.
Backing up a step about what new players can do. One, they can, if they really are totally new, you might not want to jump into groups that are doing it on Epic, Elite, or Elite difficulties, because that may be too much of a challenge for you. And also, if you're new to raids, one of the things that you can do is go on YouTube and watch somebody doing the raid, and at least you're going to see sort of what to expect, and it's going to make things a lot easier for you.
Yeah, or at least read the wiki.
Yeah, I think it's that with older players too. Don't just tell people information. Give them tools to find other information. Don't just, if they're asking something and you look it up on the wiki, don't just say, hey, this is the answer you're looking for. Say, hey, this is the answer you're looking for, and here's where you can find that information. And help them later. Yeah, so let's go on to how can Turbine help new players get into the game. And we were talking about this earlier too. There is the DDO Chronicle, which is in the launcher, which is something that they do. So when you're loading the game in, there's information that's in there that you can go and get. That will redirect you to the forums and other links as well. I'd also say that particularly lower level quests are designed. A lot of them are designed in a way to introduce you into the game and the mechanics of the game, which I think is a really good thing that they have done.
Yeah, and I want to be careful with this because this is something that's been brought up on the Players' Council, so I don't want to get into an area that, I'm talking about something I shouldn't. Player retention is something that was discussed there. Although it was brought up, this was something players brought up, so, I've got a little more leeway than if it was something that actually came from the devs. But yeah, what I'd like to see is just, in the beginning, make it a little easier to find what quests you're supposed to be running, what you're supposed to be doing, what all the different little map symbols mean, things like that. Where to get ingredient bags, which I had to stop and look for once they changed Harbor around and Mary Mosshand's not there anymore. It took me a while to realize I haven't had a low-level tune in ages, a new one, that you actually have to go and pick up quests to get the bags now.
There are different people. I'd say, kind of along with that, there's the campaign system, which is kind of like the quest of quests that pop up while you're in town. I think that's really helpful. It at least kind of gives you some direction in areas that you're new to kind of get you in the idea of finding a guy to give you a quest, and the quests have a chain order to them, which I think is really helpful. Where was I going to go with that? I could definitely see it it would kind of destroy a little bit of the role playing and the immersion of the world aspect. But it would be nice if um, there were some things related to the UI interfaces and using your map, like some of the the NPCs would tell you, hey, this is how you use your map. Turn your map on and go look for this, right? Or this is how you post an LFM panel. Uh, Again, it kind of takes you out of the immersion of the world, but it kind of walks you through how to do some of that stuff, which are important aspects of the game. Or even just, hey, this is how you open up the LFM panel to find more groups would be helpful.
Yeah, it was ages before I knew that I could press O and go to the whatever the tab is called and actually look to see what groups were open that I could join, and then to get over my fear of joining groups of total strangers, and that's a whole other story. And the other thing is just knowing, like, if you've never played an MMO, you don't know what hotbars are, which was me when I started. It was, I had this default stuff that's set up on your hotbar when you start. That's all I had on my rogue for like our first 4 or 5 levels. I would open up my inventory and look for stuff, and I can't believe sometimes when I look back that I stayed with the game because that's such a pain to keep doing when you don't know anything about it.
Talking about hotbars, I think it was probably 2 or 3 years of playing the game before I had more than one hotbar on my screen.
Wow.
And at least part of that was because I didn't know you could have more than one hotbar on your screen. I didn't realize you could undock them. And I don't think I learned that until I saw a screenshot or a video or something where someone had like hotbars everywhere on their screen, right? Like hotbars on the side and hotbars on the like they had hotbars everywhere. Like, oh, you can do that. Wait, how do you do that? And then I figured it out. And it was probably still a little bit longer until I actually started using multiple hotbars. Now I have hotbars everywhere. Like, if there's something on a hotbar, the only thing that's not on a hotbar that's on my screen easily accessible is like teleporting stuff, which I'll hide, partly so I don't accidentally hit it while I'm in a quest, because that's never happened before.
Oh yeah, it really sucks to accidentally hit your key to Evening Star when you're not meaning to.
Yeah, or the opposite. I need to go to Evening Star. Oh wait, I need to. Oh dang it. Yep.
Oops.
Yeah, I've definitely done that. And usually it's for something like, oh, I should have gone to the mailbox or the bank while I was in. Wait, I could have done that in Evening Star. Why did I stop? Oh well, start hiking. Um, Anything else you guys want to add about integrating new players into the game?
Honestly, I think the biggest thing on both sides, whether you're the new player looking for advice or the experienced player giving it, the single biggest thing more than anything else is just be polite, be respectful, because you're going to have a much better shot at somebody either helping you or letting you help them. And especially experience. This is what I was going to say before, and I know this from being new and also from being female. You guys probably, it's amazing. The minute they hear a female voice, it doesn't matter how long you've been playing the game, it doesn't matter what you can run. There are guys in the game who automatically assume that you are female, you can't possibly be good at this or know what you're supposed to be doing. And the same, it's awful sometimes. I had this guy, actually, I was running schemes with this guy to farm boots one time, and he's like stopping in mid-quest, and he stood there for 45 minutes explaining to me how the quest works. I was in there, dude, I've run this quest a bazillion times. I want to farm some boots. Go!
Wow.
A lot of older players, the same concept kind of applies to new players. Maybe they do have a lot of MMO experience or a lot of D&D background, or they've been smart enough and had someone point them to the wiki and the forums and stuff. They've done a lot of research. Just because they're new, maybe they're not all that clueless. Don't assume they need to be told what to do. Ask them. Don't just start lecturing. That's one of the things that will get me every time.
Just part of the reason why I
somebody
say
assuming
ask before you give advice.
You're female, you're new, you don't know diddly squat. Big, strong, macho guy, I'll show you how it's done. The funny thing about Schemes of the Enemy is at one point during a fight, he stopped to explain something. I think it was during the Hound fight. and he was so busy talking he forgot to watch his health bar. Ding! I laughed so hard that I nearly died.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, that's why I say ask questions, be open, be honest too. I mean, let's say as a closing thought too, if as an older player, someone asks you a question you don't know, just say I don't know. Like that's okay. You don't need to know everything. Um, it's better that you say, hey, I don't know, or even better, hey, I don't know, but hey, go to the wiki. Here's the wiki address. You can go look there and find some information. Or hey, I don't really play that class. This guy has a really good build for that class. Why don't you tell him I said to ask him, right? And then the whole thing with asking too, it sets you up for success in that, because it says, hey, I think you're an expert, or at least you know more than I do about this field, or what we're talking about. Uh, can you teach me some stuff about it? And that works in the real world too. People like to be asked uh, as though that they're something of an expert uh, regarding something, and you can ask them, hey, you seem to know what you're doing. Can you give me some pointers? People like that.
Yeah, ask, don't demand, and if you're on the other end of it, explain, don't lecture, and it works out better for everybody.
I'd also say too, I mean, it depends on how your guild runs, but don't be afraid to have newer people in your guild as an older player. That can really help get them into the community and really build them up, particularly guilds that are more open. And I understand that some guilds aren't that way, and they want to keep things small, or they have certain criteria, and that's totally fine. But I would say, and I kind of said this as a one-liner in passing earlier, look for the attitude, not just the play skills, right? I would much rather have someone who is interested in listening and learning than someone who is phenomenally great at playing. Because that person who's listening and learning is going to be someone that's going to be more fun to play with, and they're going to be more interested in learning stuff, and they're going to be easier to get along with than the know-it-all guy who's got all the skills. And maybe the best player on the server, but if he's abrasive and just flaunts that, then that's not someone I'm going to want to play with.
That's so true. And I think another thing older players need to keep in mind, you hear people complaining about, nobody's on, these LFM won't fill, I can't fill my groups. Well, then don't be a jerk to new players, because they're eventually not going to be new players. There's all these, they're coming up someday. They're going to be people you're going to want to group with, unless you chase them away.
I would say, too, I'll comment this and kind of move on in the show, but particularly if you're in a guild with newer players, don't be afraid to have them lead. Start them with quests, right? Maybe something that requires a little bit of, don't be afraid to have new people be leaders. Not everyone wants to be a leader, and that's fine. But give people an opportunity to lead raids, particularly if they have an interest in doing that. Get them to lead quests and put up LFM panels, because then you're teaching them how to do that, so that when they want to run that raid or a quest that might be difficult, they can lead it, and they can run it, and then they can take other people along. So, any last quick thoughts on new player integration?
I'm pretty happy with our conversation.
I think that was helpful for...
Same here.
Let's see. The survey question for the week comes from Kirkos. What mob noise, call, or speech from DDO would you most like to see as a ringtone or SMS notification?
I'm going to have to say Loth saying, I am a harsh mistress.
Hopefully not for a wife or a girlfriend. That might be a little...
Oh, that's a good question. I had not really thought about that. Oh, I think I'm a fan of Harry. I'm thinking, what is this? Why am I here? I should be on Chevron. Maybe not the I should be on Chevron's part, but just what is this? Why am I here?
Be a good one. I always like the the various rage streaks would be a fun one as well.
Oh yeah, there's some dying something that dies that makes this. I think it's something in Lords of Dust, and it just makes this horrible, horrible, distressed sound. It's like that would make a great ringtone. I mean, people who heard it around you who didn't play DDO would be like, holy heck, what is that?
Indeed. Well, I'm going to close out the show then. Anything you guys want to throw in here before we close out? You guys want to plug your blogs really quick?
Oh yeah, I just finished a video project on my YouTube channel, which is Voodu Spyce. It's all about my druid caster healer quasi tank build. And this video project I did because a lot of people had asked about the first life viability of it, so I rolled up a new tune and played it just as I do on my build in the druid form. And it's a 20 video series where I start off with doing Misery's Peak, and just every couple of levels there's a new video, and I go over enhancements, gearing at that level, feats, and just kind of how to play that build at that level. It's a really helpful guide for newer players to Druid. If you're interested in any kind of caster, healer, Druid, this is going to be a very helpful series for you.
Oh, should probably give you beta access to the forum I'm working on for our DDO, and I'm going to want to post that there.
Cool.
Awesome. Did you want to plug anything, Even Note?
Sure, what's a little shameless self-promotion among friends, right? I am Even Note. I have the Even Now blog, which is ddoeven@wordpress.com, and also Players Helping Players, which is ddophp@wordpress.com. And of course the blog site, kind of a replacement for my DDO. It's basically many DDO blogs all in one place, the most recent posts, which is rddo.x10, that's x10.mx.
Listen, thanks, guys, for being on the show today and for being part of the discussion. Thanks to everyone listening to the show and to our other contributors to the cast. Thanks to Turbine and Wizards and Cyber Ears for making the game and hosting the podcast. We appreciate that. You can hit us up at DDOCast.com for show notes, our calendar, previous shows, swag, and other fun stuff. If you'd like to be a part of the show, or if you'd like to say hi, you can email us at ddocast@gmail.com. You can also find us on social media and follow us for the latest cast updates. The closing tip for the week comes from Dictina. For new or low-level players looking to make money, run Waterworks. Lots of chests and breakables to fill your inventory with sellable loot. Which I would say, yeah. If you're new and you need to find you're looking for gear, don't worry too much about gear. Just go run stuff, make some money, loot some chests, you'll find some stuff. It works out pretty good. At least that has been my experience most of the time. So with that, until next time, may all your attack rolls be crits, all your chests level appropriate, have fun, and don't forget to help a new player this week.